For the last day or two, I am feeling extremely understanding and compassionate for ego. I think it is time for the redemption of our ego. And I want to draw from the notes of a post that I have written yesterday. And I'm probably just going to end up reading it from my Facebook page rather than try to reiterate it freestyle as I normally do, because I don't want to lose the context. I think what I have written was fairly detailed and expansive, and I want to make sure I include the entire context and content in this video. Let me just see here. I'm going to read, I actually made a couple of posts, and I'm going to read them in their order in which I wrote them. And just sharing for greater expansion, greater understanding, because, like I say, it's time to redeem the ego. Ego has gotten such a bad rap. It's called the enemy, it's called demonic, it's called Satan. I want to try and integrate all of these abstracts. I want us to be able to understand so we can work with it and integrate it and truly bring redemption to ourselves. And in doing so, we can bring redemption to others, because we are resolving the conflict within ourselves, and that gains us understanding for other people, so we can be more compassionate, right? Compassion and love are the healing balm for humanity. So let me just read this here real quick. This was from a dialogue with someone else about our quote-unquote deep, dark ego. My comment was actually inspired by a person that expressed great distress over not being able to get a handle on their dark, deep ego, right? There's a distress, there's a stigma attached to the ego. And by the way, we all have ego, okay? And we're doing ourselves a disservice by being so animated with animosity towards a part of ourselves, that it creates this cycle of dis-ease and dismissal. So I'm trying to bring awareness and understanding and compassion to the whole realm of ego. So let me read this here. I said to the person, we cannot force our shadows into the light. It happens when our subconscious is ready to release these things safely. Sometimes one may be able to trigger the release by going to sleep with meditative music. Sometimes it takes a really painful event, such as a huge loss, to shake things loose in there, in the subconscious. But until that happens, you can still do small steps towards thoughts and feelings of self-care and self-love, finding ways to nurture your beautiful soul. Concerning the deep, dark ego, that sentiment that we have about our egos is that it really does not deserve that kind of reputation. It has given its all to protect and preserve your very person and body, and it has done so out of love. Yes, it's like an overprotective mother. Our ego sometimes takes more space than it should, but it is not evil. It is just doing the job that it was created to do. So maybe start by having compassion for your ego and try to appreciate its role. It's kind of like talking softly and gently to a frightened child. It will mellow. It will mellow. Now let me go to the next post. In the discussion of ego, someone presented a Bible verse, which I would like to break down in practical terms. The Bible verse that was quoted to me comes from James 3:14. And it says, "But if you have bitter jealousy, envy, and contention, rivalry, selfish ambition in your hearts, do not pride yourself on it and thus be in defiance of and false to the truth." Now, the Bible is very abstract, and most of us don't understand these things at a deeper level. It escapes us because the Bible only addresses surface symptoms. It does not reveal the unconscious. It does not reveal the unseen. So I want to try and break it down and make it more understandable and more applicable so you have something to work with and don't just feel condemned and accused by a Bible scripture. So what I responded to that is the root for this inflamed ego is trauma. And it's indisputable. The reason ego shows up as jealousy and rivalry and selfish ambition is because as children we were not sufficiently nurtured and loved. This has created a great and deep lack emotionally and psychologically in us. And ego, like a good mother, simply came in to fill that void. Ego only knows to protect in the form of self-defense, defending the soul child or the child soul that is lacking in the love and nurture it should have received. This is why I advocate for shadow work or trauma work through self-love. This stunted part of our soul needs to get its fill of validation, acknowledgement, love, and acceptance. In other words, unconditional love, in order to bring down the fever response of ego. Ego is not evil, and it does not act without legitimate cause. There is causation. It's like an immune response that has gone rogue, such as an autoimmune disorder that begins to fight our own body. Our immune system is not evil for giving us a fever either, although modern medical science seems to think so. But let me get to the point. When we remove the cause, the causality, the trauma wounds, the lack of love, the lack of nurture that our soul is stuck in, it's stuck in those past memories, then the immune response of ego can slow down. Ego is part of what and who we currently are in these physical bodies. And when we can learn to love it, it will integrate and start working properly. I think I made one more comment. To the point of ego being labeled as the enemy or the opposer, ego creating opposition within us. That is one valid way to describe it, but I think we want to clear anything opposing within us, right? So the way I see it, the only way I see how to do that is to look to its root cause. Hence why I use the analogy of the immune system. When we get sick, we feel very much opposed in our body. And oppose is the word for Satan. But the actual truth is that the immune system, like the ego, are working for us, not against us. But our mind, and taking into consideration the complex impressions that we have experienced, our mind and mental perceptions will interpret that in so many different ways. But I hope that this is elucidating and offers a little more understanding as to how we can heal the opposition we are experiencing, really by offering it acceptance and love, unconditional love, the agape of God that we read so much about. So I hope this helps somebody out there. Let us work on redeeming the ego.